What up, guys? I just want to do a video for you here today on kind of my learnings in my crash course on stippling that I gave myself over the weekend. So I thought it'd be a good idea to dive in and just attempt to stipple all of my polymer frame pistols in the matter of a day and a half or 2 days. Was that a great idea? Absolutely not. Was it a good idea? Maybe. Was it an okay idea that taught me a lot about stippling really quick? Absolutely. So I'm just going to start with polymers. These polymers all feel different. This SIG polymer is going to feel different than this Glock. This Glock is going to feel different than the dagger. The dagger is going to feel different than the CZ. Given the CZ and the Glock are much similar, or more similar to each other than they are to the daggers, there is still a difference. There's actually even a difference in the polymer on this backstrap versus the polymer of the frame. The polymer on the backstrap is a lot denser, a lot more robust, and takes a lot longer time for that wood burner to sit before it melts like it does on the main frame or main polymer grip of the gun. These daggers are a little bit different. The polymer is, I guess, more robust, but it also just feels different. It burns different. It sounds different. So anything you're going to do is going to feel a little different. So you can practice all you want, but until you start doing it, you're not really going to know exactly the method you want to use. So given all of this stuff is super forgiving, so it's not something, to be super concerned with or be really scared about. Just know that and recognize that when you go to do another pistol. If you've had really good success on one, like I thought I had a great, outcome on this Glock the first time I did it, which I guess I kind of did. I dove right into another pistol and it felt entirely different. It kind of, had a whole different learning curve to it. So moving on from polymer makeups, obviously, like I said, those are going to be different. The method in which you stipple is going to affect, obviously, the texture of the grip. So to kind of give you a quick example of a way that I've achieved, now I don't know if this is the best way, I don't know if this is the right way or anything like that, but a way that I've figured out to achieve a more and less aggressive texture is, I know, like I just said here, you know what, these are different polymers, so I'll use my dagger and my compact dagger frame, which are the same exact polymer. They feel exactly the same, but I've achieved a different level of grippiness, if you want to say that, if you want to call it that, on these, just by utilizing different methods of stippling. So this is the first one I did, and originally on this I had just done a bunch of dots. Same with my Glock when I first did that one. I did a bunch of dots, it looked okay, and then moved on and did some more testing on some plastic that I had laying around. It was actually not just plastic I had laying around, it was the back strap of the P09, because I really wanted to stipple this one as well. And so I practiced on one of the back straps that I knew I didn't really like. I didn't like the way it felt. I think it was the small. I prefer the medium and the large. So I went ahead and tested on that. But just kind of started using a new method. And that is what I'm going to just call squiggly line method, which is when you take your wood burner and you just do little random lines. And it creates a pattern that looks like this. And it is going to be less aggressive than if you were to do that same pattern over a dot pattern like I did with this dagger. So like I said, before I digressed into the P09, I did a dot method on this dagger, and then I went back over and did that squiggly line method. And it created a much more aggressive texture. You can kind of see how much deeper the pits are in that than they are on my full-size frame. I think this looks a little better. This looks a little more chaotic, a little more consistent maybe. Another thing I didn't do on this was shave down the old panels to smooth, which I'd recommend. I did shave off the finger grooves on both of these, and I also gave both of them undercuts, polished this first area here, and stippled the second. On my compact, I also did some indexing points here, or accelerator pedals if you want to call it that, and can't really use them for that with the way my hands are. I don't have huge hands, so reaching my thumb up there doesn't really work very well for me, but I like the way it looks. All right, so moving on from that, let's see, what else do I want to talk about? What else would have helped me this Friday when I started on all this shit? So another thing, go ahead and get yourself a wood burner. Don't try and use a soldering iron. Or you can, actually, you know what? Go ahead. If you've got a soldering iron with a more round tip like that, I say go for it. And I'd try the squiggly line method, and I'd try it obviously on some plastic you don't care about or a broken frame, something like that. You can try the dot method, but I feel like the bigger the tip on your wood burner or soldering iron is, the better that dot method is going to come out, and you can kind of just really randomize the way you place those dots down. When it gets smaller into a smaller tip, this is probably the smallest I'd go. You're going to have to kind of line them up essentially, or it's going to get really messy, and there's no way to really describe to you a better kind of give you a better description of that until you go to try it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like I said, test it on plastic. Here's a Magula mag loader. This will be a great plastic just to test it on. Obviously make sure you're not going to stipple anything that needs to slide over, but like in this corner down here, sorry, let me hold this in front of the camera. In this corner down here would be a great spot to just test, and I'm sure this plastic would work okay. I haven't tried it, so don't take my word for it, but I think it'd be a good thing to practice on if you don't really care about what your mag loader looks like, which, I mean, I don't. So, of course, you can do back straps, something like that as well. All right. Something else that I noticed. I got this little rotary tool, which I wish I had gotten sooner. This makes just life a lot easier, especially if you want to do undercuts and stuff. You kind of have to have one of these to do undercuts. But one of the things I noticed with that, maybe it's a bad tip because this is the Harbor Freight house brand, maybe this thing's just weak, but on this full-size dagger frame, I did a border where I used some of the existing lines and then created some new ones to connect all this together and give it more depth. It did not work very well. As you can see, some of these down here worked better. You can see like a defined line, but it's also a little melted from my wood burner going over it. Let me see if I can just kind of scrape that off with my thumbnail, get rid of that burr. Did you see that? I just tried to tap this to focus on this. What an idiot. So you can see it didn't turn out the best. It's not the worst. I really think I like the way this turned out better, just being careful and making these lines with the wood burner. But that's something else I'd look into getting as a Dremel. Just practice. Practice, practice, practice. If you're like me, you'll just practice on your guns because you don't have anything else and you're impatient and you can't wait on anything, and your slide's getting cut for an optic and you haven't gotten it back yet, so you're just sitting here tapping your foot trying to figure out something to do to make your guns cooler. So that's pretty much it. Highly recommend some PPE, guys. Dude, I'm not the kind of person to go out of my way to put on gloves, put on safety goggles, even though I highly recommend doing it anytime you work with springs, anytime you work with wire wheels. Wire wheels especially, guys. Please wear appropriate PPE working on wire wheels. I was actually just doing some work at my day job, polishing some metal up with a wire wheel on a bench, and man, I got done and the whole front of my shirt had, you know, a couple hundred microscopic almost pieces of metal wire in it. Made for an uncomfortable ride home. Luckily I could just pick and pull those out, but something like that goes into your eye. It's a little bit gets a little complicated there, so highly recommend some PPE. This is mostly for the dust when using the rotary tool or the Dremel. Given this you should wear this while you're stippling because there's little bits of smoke, but I think if you're in a well-ventilated area, you won't need this if you're just stippling. This, like I said, is mostly for the Dremel because it's a little bit bigger particulate. It does get into the air more. Your hands are going to be covered in dust from this polymer. I got these gloves just for the wood burner because it does get hot right here near the tip. Too hot to hold actually right here, but these are just enough protection, and you know, they leave you with some dexterity as well. So those are some PPE suggestions I would suggest. Actually, before I forget, let me just reiterate how important safety goggles are. I took these off for about 3 seconds while I was dremeling the finger groove off of this guy right here, and promptly got some shit in my eye and spent a half hour getting that out. And so that set me back. You know, I'm not trying to spend all night doing this, given I'm having a pretty good time doing it and overdoing it. I didn't want to sit here, like I said, all night and do this, but of course, you know, getting stuff in your eye, injuries, that's gonna take time up, and you're gonna regret not wearing your PPE. So wear your PPE. I'll get off my high horse about PPE. That's it, guys. Go and stipple your shit. I love it. Like I said, all of my guns are stippled now. The start of this weekend, I had one stippled frame. That was this Glock frame, and it was half-ass stippled. Now all of my polymer frame pistols have stippling. All except my Walther P22, and I can't stipple that. That was a gift from my dad, so I'm not gonna mess with that. That's gonna stay just the way he left it. So you guys have any questions in the comments, leave those down below. What else can I say? Yeah, I mean, dive into it. Don't fuck your shit up, and if you do, just know it's not the end of the world. It's not. You're not gonna punch a hole in this polymer. You're not gonna. Anything you fuck up is gonna be cosmetic and can likely be sanded down and redone. Especially if you know, fuck it up real bad and you can fork over some big bucks to send it off and have a professional do it. You can do it that way as well. Given, I think you can get just fine results at your house. I actually really love the way this turned out, and I'm super happy with it. Obviously, I'm happy with it. Everything's fucking stippled. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.